Hey guys, welcome to this next Flash rigging class. In this class we're going to be taking a look at how to add hands to our character. So in production, in animation production, on any Flash production, once they create hands for one character, oftentimes they'll use the same hands as long as the characters has similar proportions. So I'll just show you how that works first. I'm going to open up a file with one of my other Flash rigs. Alright, so I'm going to open up Frump. And I'm using him because he only has 2 fingers and a thumb, just like our Kalian body rig. So you can see that he opened on another tab here. So what you can do is take symbols from one Flash file and bring them into another Flash file. And really we can do this in a couple different ways. We can either copy it from the library or we can just copy it right from the stage here. You can also copy it right from the frame that it exists on. I'll just do it right from the stage. If we right click on it, copy, and we'll go to our Kalian file here. So let's dive into the master symbol. And I don't have a layer for the hands yet. So I'm going to create a layer for the hands. And I would like to get it on top of the forearm. So I'm going to select the forearm just to locate it here in the layers area. And I'll just create a new layer here. And I'll name it Kalian left hand. And right click, let's just paste it in the center. So this is a character that we already had rigged and we already created hands for him. So if I scrub over the timeline here, you can see if we go to our properties, since the symbol is set to loop, it'll just continue looping the hands that are inside the symbol. You can see we have a variety of different hands here, and that's how you can use another character's hands on the character you're currently building. This would work, and this is the way I would do it. I would just use the hands from Frump. You'd have to go to each hand and just fill the color for whichever color he ends up being. We haven't actually decided on his color yet. That'll be next class. If you have to build hands from scratch, and I'll just select the hand and hit delete on my keyboard, this row becomes empty. You can draw a whole bunch of hands on paper and then scan or take a picture of the piece of paper and bring it in as reference. I can do that. It's time consuming. I just do a Google image search and just find some hands for reference. Obviously we're not going to copy hands that we find on a Google image search because it's a copyright infringement. We don't want to copy anyone's work, but we can use hand drawings that we find online just for reference. But we're going to design the hands to match the design of the hands that we drew here. On the video class page I provided a couple of different references. We have a page out of Preston Blair's How to Draw Cartoon Animation book, and we also have another example here from an artist from DeviantArt. And the reason why I chose this one is because this will be a good reference to use for the different angles of a hands at rest. And then the Preston Blair art, we're going to use these hands as references as well. These hands that are here are good for acting. So what we're going to do is bring these into our Flash file. I'll create 2 new layers, and these are just going to be temporary layers. We're going to delete them later, and I'll just bring in these references right on those layers. So just go to the layer that you want that to be on. I'm going to go to this layer 3 here. You can do it right from the window, just drag and drop it right onto the stage. So I'm going to scale that down, just hit Q on the keyboard for our free transform tool and hold shift down to constrain the proportions. And I'm going to bring it down to approximately the same size as I want our character's hand to be. So we already created a layer earlier for his hand to exist on. Now we need to create the artwork, and then we'll make a symbol out of it. We'll draw the first hand, and then we'll create a symbol out of it. And then inside that symbol we'll draw all the other hands. And I'm just going to use this for reference, but I'm going to keep it in the original design. And it's the same process. We're just going to block it out with the line tool, turning on our snap to objects so that the edges snap together nicely. And then we're going to refine it by bending out the lines. So before we start drawing, we have these layers at the very top. I'll bring it underneath the Kalian hand layer. We want the reference to be underneath our line work. And now you want to select the Kalian hand layer to start drawing the artwork. N on my keyboard for the line tool, and let's make sure our line thickness is at 2, the same line thickness that we used for the rest of the character. And again, we want to look at the design and try to keep in line with the design that was originally drawn. So now I'm going to turn off my snap to objects to bend and refine these lines a little bit. Alright, so I'm just going to leave it at that for now, and I'm going to double click to get all that line work, and let's just bring it over to where his hand is here. I'm just going to rotate it, get it into position, and let's color it. Okay, so now let's make a symbol out of this hand, and we'll fill up that symbol with more hands. You can double click on the line to get all the lines of the hand, and then hold shift down, select the fill. You want to make sure you get all the artwork here. And we'll hit F8 on our keyboard to create a new symbol. Alien left hand, leave it on graphic, everything the same as usual. Okay. So right off the bat, I'm going to change the pivot point, just get that done and out of the way, and see how that works out. We can see that it breaks here. So what we're going to do is round off the edge of the forearm. And now when we rotate the hand, alright, so let's double click to get inside the hand symbol, and we have our original artwork on frame 1, and let's go to frame 2, and we'll draw our next hand. And you can hit F7 on your keyboard, or you can right click and choose insert blank keyframe. It's just a frame with nothing on it, but we'll start drawing and we'll put the drawing on it. So on frame 2 I'm going to create this next hand, and then on frame 3 we'll do another blank keyframe and create the next hand. Okay, and I'll just go ahead and fill that in right away. Okay, so I'm just going to double click on all that and bring it over. And again, we might have to go through and just match up some of the line work to the wrist here. Now we have two hands. The hand seems to sort of grow, so we'll have to just go through and adjust some of that artwork a little bit. Once you make your adjustments, you can go through and just flip back and forth just to ensure that the hands look like they go together. The proportions seem to match. And I'll continue on as well with the Preston Blair hands. And I'll go to layer 4. As long as that layer is selected, we're going to put our temporary hand reference on that layer. So we're just going to drag it right from the window right onto the stage. And it comes in, you see it comes in really big. I'm just going to scale it down. We can move it later when we need it. So I'll continue on with these hands, and then we'll do the other hands. We're going to have a huge library of hands. We'll have at least 25 or 30 hands. That way the animators will have a lot of hands to choose from as they're posing their character. Definitely, it's very common to have hands at rest like this, so you want all the angles of a hand at rest for both sides, and then you want a good variety of acting hands. So we'll do a whole bunch. Oftentimes in animation production, the animators always have to, for any 2D production, whether it be Flash or Toonboom or any other 2D software, they'll appreciate a large library of hands and they'll use them. There is always going to be a circumstance where an animator doesn't have the hand that they either want or need for the expression they want to get with the hand. So animators will in production, in 2D production, have to create new hands regularly. So we'll zip through the rest hands, and then I'll go through and talk about some of the acting hands that are common for character acting. And for some of the detail on the inside of the hand, it's line work that's inside the hand on the inside of the artwork. So it's nice to just thin that line work out. So we can change that to a line thickness of maybe 1.5 or even 1. And that's the last one, so let's just scrub over, make sure the proportions and size matches the other hands. So that's good. We have our rest hands. Now let's move the acting hands out of the way. I'm just going to put them over here for now. Really, we can delete that layer. We don't really need it anymore. So I'm just going to delete the layer, and I'm going to go into my library. Just get rid of that artwork right from our file. We'll just go and delete it. Right click and delete. We don't want it in the file at all, and we'll delete this one later. We still have our mouths in here. We can delete that too. We don't really need that anymore. So let's just bring that down and we'll scale it up. We're going to use these acting hands down here, some of them, not all of them. I'm going to choose specific ones. So I'll just scale it up so it's close to the size that our character's hand is. Okay, I'm just using this hand to compare. With character acting, we want to get hands that are going to help us with the character gesturing. These 4 hands right here are great for gestures. If the character's angry or frustrated, we want to have every different angle of a fist we can. And really, I think I'm just going to use almost all of these. The only hands that I'm not going to use are these ones where the hands are together. The cigar hands we'll leave out. Anything holding anything, basically we're going to leave out. Or anything with 2 hands together like this we'll leave out. But all the other hands we'll include. They can all be used for character acting and gesturing. So again, we just want to make sure the wrists match up. It's likely that if we were to use this hand, the forearm would be in front of the hand like it is here. Because the forearm would be in front, we would want the hand to be rounded off here just in case we wanted to rotate it, just so that we wouldn't see the edge of the lines. So I'm going to close that in actually. Use my snap to objects and just close this right in completely, and we'll just round it off. And again, I'm just going to do a proportion and size check. It is a time-consuming process to rig the hands because there's so many that you'd want to include. If you were building this character for a TV series, then I would certainly include pretty much all the single hands that are alone for every gesturing possibility that the animator or you may come across. But if you're building it for yourself, so you have a project in mind and you've storyboarded it and you know what the character is basically going to be doing, then you can plan out the hands. That way you're not drawing more hands than you need. These hands can be flipped for use on the other side as well. Just for the demonstration purposes, I'm not going to go through and create all these hands, but you would want to do that if you're rigging a character. You can see that it's in front of the right leg. We don't want it to be in front. We want it to be behind. So we're going to just hold down on the layer, the right hand layer. And I'm just going to take a look. I can see all my legs are down here. So I'm going to drag this underneath all the legs. And let's put it right to the bottom. As soon as you do that, you'll see that it goes right behind the legs. And then we'll put our feet at the bottom so the feet will be in front of the hand. But this is good for now. I'm just going to change this hand to a hand that makes more sense. Again, you can use your up and down arrow keys. This one actually looks pretty good. I'm just going to delete this layer. We don't need it anymore in our file. So I'll just hit my delete button there, get rid of that. And I want to go in the reference and get it out of there too. We just want to clean up our file. We just don't want any elements in our library that we don't need. So I'm just going to select the Preston Blair Hands JPEG, and you can just hit delete on your keyboard. And we also have our Kalian Views JPEG that we use to rig the character. We can get rid of that too. So we'll leave it at that for hands. We'll move on to the feet. I'll buzz through the feet pretty quickly because it's basically the same process. For the feet though, the only difference is that for walk cycles, you want to have all the different poses of a walk cycle. We want to make sure that you definitely do those first and make sure that the character can walk and has all the poses you need for the feet to bend for walk cycles. And then after that, we'll do a few more just for other situations like kneeling down and stuff like that. So you can download the reference that we provided on the website. Let's create a new layer to put it on first. So I'm just going to create a new layer. We can go into our folder, and I'm just going to hold down on the walk and drag it onto our stage. I'm just going to use this reference mostly just for the feet positions. Alright, and this character is walking to the right. Our Kalian character in 3/4 facing left. So I'm just going to flip this around. So I'll have to create a new layer now for his feet. I'm going to put it right on the bottom because I know I want the feet to be behind the hand. And we'll name it Kalian right foot. Alright, so just using my brush tool on this new layer. Just make a paint stroke. Now we're just going to select it, make a symbol. Call it the same thing. And now we have our symbol. So I'll double click to get inside there. Alright, so let's take a look at the different poses of a foot for the walk. For the contact pose, for the left leg contact pose, we probably want to get the foot bent a little bit. And then for this foot, we want it to be completely bent with the toes touching the ground and have it bend at the ball of the foot here. Let's create one for that. I'm going to move this reference over a little bit just so we can see the pose. And before we even go further, let's just put this layer where it's supposed to be, just so the hand's not over top of the foot. So we'll just put the foot over above that hand layer, just so we layer it properly first. Alright, so I'll get back inside my foot symbol. Let's go to frame 2. And we can right click and go insert blank keyframe, or we can hit F7 on our keyboard. Sometimes it's nice to turn on your onion skinning, just so you can see the previous drawing. So what we could do is copy this and go copy frames. We'll go to frame 2 and go paste frames. So I just deleted the color, drag a box over some of this line work here and delete it. For a walk cycle, you want to get them nice and smooth, so sometimes it's good to have a couple of increments. So we might want to do an in-between of this, just so we have 2 or 3 drawings of the heel lifting. So actually, let's make this the most extreme one. Alright, so let's go to the next frame. Go to frame 3. We'll hit F7 for a blank keyframe. I'll just make one in between these two. That should be enough. If it's not, you can always go back and make other in-betweens just so things run a little smoother. And I think what I'll do is I'll copy frame 2, paste that on frame 3, go to paste frames, and we can just use this to modify it a little bit. There, we'll turn the onion skinning off, and let's just drag over those for a minute. It's mostly just to get that back foot to bend. And let's make a foot for the contact pose. It'll be very similar to frame 1. So I'm actually just going to slide these over. I want to have this contact foot to be right next to our first foot. Just my preference. You don't really need to do that. But I'm going to copy frame 1. Copy frames. Let's copy to frame 2. Paste. So now we have, on frame 1 and 2, we have the identical feet. Just copied frame 1 to frame 2. So I'm going to work on frame 2 a little bit. So let's just get rid of the paint. So what we could do, sometimes this comes in pretty handy. Drag a box over all of it. You can right click and go choose envelope. And you'll see we get all these points and you get these Bezier handles. And you can see the effect on the line work. You have to be kind of careful with this. It does some funky stuff sometimes, but it's handy if you want to bend some artwork. So all I want to do now is really just get the toes to bend up a little bit. So I'm just going to bring this up. I'll bring the bottom one up as well. We have to bring all 3 of these up. You can see there's 3 on each edge. And you can see some of the line work's getting funky there. Basically what I'm trying to do is have this whole box bend upwards. So when you move stuff up like that, you have to take the Bezier handle and just sort of bend it down to shape it properly. So I'm just going to click anywhere off in space here to deactivate. And I'm just going to go in and fix this a little bit. You can see my lines got kind of messed up here. Just fix it just so it's a little more aesthetically pleasing. Alright, so we have pose 1, pose 2, 2 poses for the foot to bend at the ball. So I think we're actually good. I think that's all we really need for the walk cycle. You can certainly go through and add in, you can add another in-between drawing here, and you can add another one on another frame. You can add another one here as well. So you can in-between these to get a smoother transition, but I think this would be fine. For a limited style animation, it's totally fine. Alright, so we're going to create the left foot now. In any TV series or any kind of 2D production, if you see a character walking, sometimes they'll have them walk in profile, but usually if they're walking towards screen right or towards screen left, basically right to left or left to right, they'll usually keep them in their three-quarter view. It's sort of a cheat, but it looks more appealing that way. So I'm just going to double click to get out of here. I'm just going to give myself a perspective guide and then just use the line tool. Now I just go with my line tool and just start drawing this foot in. Round off the ankle. And now we can delete these guidelines. We don't really need them. We have the artwork for his left foot layer. We have to create a symbol out of that. So F8, we'll name it Kalian left foot. So let's try grabbing this one first and paste frames. And it gives us this. First we'll move it into place. So I'm going to move the pivot point, shift it into place. Let's turn the onion skinning on so we make sure we get everything looking proper. Delete the paint and we'll just work with the line here. Just flip back and forth between those two and make sure they look like they actually are the same foot. So for all these foot poses that we did for the walk, I'm going to copy the foot poses from the right foot and we're going to bring them into the left foot symbol. So we get the bent right here. This is our first one. So let's right click on that keyframe, copy, go inside the left foot, right to our new keyframe at the end, right to the end, and just go paste frames. And there it is. So I'm going to get rid of the paint again just to work with the line work. Let's just bring it down into place And then we're just going to switch the perspective basically so that the toes are the opposite perspective as the right foot. So that'll be fine. And we'll do the same thing. Let's fill that in. And we'll just keep going in this way. We'll just keep taking those feet. So we got that one already. Let's get this one. And then we should be good to go. Copy frames. Let's go into the other foot. We'll go right to the end there. Right click and paste frames. Let's get rid of the paint for now. Get all the line work, move it into place. And all we really need to do is change the lengths of these toes. There, let's fill that in. Just flip back and forth and make sure the proportions remain the same. Alright, so that should be enough to get a walk cycle going with this character. If you were creating it on a production for animators to use, you might want to create a few extra views of the feet. You don't know what the scripts are going to call for, and the positions that the animators are going to need the character to get into. So it's kind of hard to predict. You can create different angles of the foot, but it's kind of hard to predict what they'll need. So as long as you give them a walk cycle, they can use it for a run cycle as well for the most part. But animators will, again, it's part of 2D production. Animators are going to create new pieces and parts for their character anyway. So I think it's really just enough. It's enough to just give them enough for a walk cycle to start with, and then they'll create new pieces as they need to. Alright, so for now I'm going to delete this reference. And I'm going to go into the library and get rid of it in there too. So we'll select this Preston Blair walk in the library, just hit delete on the keyboard. So because the 3/4 is used mostly in production, the characters are in 3/4 view 90% of the time. So it's important to get those walk cycle feet in for the 3/4 view. So because these are it's more rare that you would see the character do much in these other views, I'm just going to create the feet that we have for the rotation drawings here, the ones that we have already drawn out in our design, and then I'll just leave it at that for those views as far as the feet go. And then again, animators can, if they need other feet at those angles, they can create more. Alright, so that's it for the hands and feet. Join me in the next class for color and shadow.